welcome again to Black Cat Chat. I'm Andy Clow, Marketing Director at Black Cat Building Consultancy. Today I've got the pleasure of being joined by Rob Mowat, come down from our Manchester office. He's our Financial Director. Today we're going to talk a little bit about his background, a little bit about how he joined Black Cat, and then what makes Black Cat different, special, amazing. Yep. And everything like that. So, Rob, let's start with a little bit about you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I joined Black Cat in December 2022. I've previously been an accountant in practice, and I was the external accountant for Black Cat. Okay. So I had a bit more easy way in, should we say, to Black Cat because I was working externally for them.
Yeah, you had the full exposure before you joined.
Knew all the guys. I was working here one day a month, pretty much, coming in, helping out some of the guys, and then obviously an opportunity came up and they said, do you want to join? And it felt, it was the first time I'd made the choice to go, you've got working in practice, you've got working in industry, and I'd never fancied working in industry. Okay. And it was the first time when I actually sort of rang alarm bells, discussed it at home, and went, actually, this feels like the right thing to do. Yeah. And, thankfully, it has been, for plenty of reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So prior to your joining the business, I think we didn't have an internal, so it was a complete change of system for everything. So you had to do everything.
There was a finance team. They were already there, who were still there now. However, it was getting to that point where it was growing. We had more offices started, we had more individuals coming in, and it felt like there was a position there to oversee the finance function. Whereas previously, the bit of finance team, Ben was looking after it to a point, but obviously he had different responsibilities. And then externally, the accountants were looking after it as well. Okay,
that makes sense. So after you joined and you settled in, I take it that there was a huge amount of a challenge to make everything progressive to the situation that we've got it into now. Yeah. So tell us a bit about those initial challenges and how you approach them differently, perhaps like trying to think about how Black Cat does do things differently, and interested to hear more.
Yeah, so the challenge wasn't too bad, because the guys were doing a great job and they still are now. So it was all set up. It was more a position of going, we're growing this. We've got everything working at the moment, but we're not set up for the scalability. Right. So as we get bigger, are we prepared? Do we know what's going on? So a lot of the initial work was sort of analytical in terms of going, we've got the whip that we'll probably talk about in a bit in terms of that runs the business, but it's interpretation of that. So we had a spreadsheet running it, but then a lot of the analysis has come from, how's this going? What about if we do this? If we do this, what's the effect going to be? Yeah. And more that side of it and planning rather than going, this is what's historically happened, which we were doing at the start.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, a huge part of scale up of any business, and the way that Black Cat has been running itself for 10 years. I'm part of a similar process within the marketing department, and that's why we're here today, right? This is definitely new to us. So, in terms of as those challenges, were running through, and you were able to start meeting those, how did you implement those changes to the business? And again, leading up, like you mentioned, the whip. Maybe we can come to that as well.
Yeah, the guys are great. Everything, as far as I can remember, that I've put forward as an idea, they've been just go ahead with it, crack on with it, it's your thing. You're running the finance team, you crack on with it. Go through it with them. There've been things, they might seem small, but it's the whole business is set on transparency, isn't it? Everyone knows what's going on. It used to be run through the spreadsheet, but now we've got things like, we've got a meeting today with the London team in terms of just updating them what's going on. The business has to still, as it grows, have that small business feel. Yes. So everyone feels like they're part of it, they know what's going on. These guys are surveyors, they're meant to be busy doing their own work. They shouldn't be looking through the finance side of it to try and interpret what's going on. So we come out, go through it with them on a quarterly basis. They know probably more information than I've seen in any other business before, which is great. Everyone knows what's going on. Yeah. There's nothing hidden, should we say, nothing going on that people don't know about. Everything to the level of everyone's salaries is known by everyone, which is, in all the companies that I've seen, that's the first time I've seen that particular thing, which is great.
Absolutely, especially for it to be a privately owned business. Maybe in a public sector or something like that, you've got the banding and everything like that. But again, that's open to interpretation. So no, I was very surprised with that on day one, or even before day one when I got the whip
it scares
shared
people
with me. Yeah,
when you first go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. That level of transparency is quite outrageous, I think, sometimes. When you think about it. So okay, like we said, we've mentioned the whip, and it is this kind of holy grail for how we run the business currently, and can we say you're in charge of that? Is that your baby, or
Not my baby, because it wasn't mine to start with, but I've taken it on, so maybe I've adopted it.
You've adopted it. Okay, brilliant. All right. So when people start, so let's just say somebody who's considering joining Black Cat.
Yep.
And they're watching this because they're really excited about the proposition. Okay.
Good.
And so they get sent a copy, like I was, of the whip. Now, to me, I saw bits I didn't understand because I'm not that way kind of educated or inclined, if you like. But I did see this amazing transparency about a growing business. And so, you know, how do you keep that, what might be a huge beast, kind of controlled to the point where everyone can understand it?
Yeah, I mean, it changes over time. We've developed it, we've amended it, it'll keep changing in the future.
Yeah.
But you look at it and go, it's in reality a document that tracks every single job we've got as an input, and then on the output of it, it runs through to, from a surveyor point of view, what their bonuses are.
Yeah.
So it's automatically calculating those for them. And I think the different thing there is everyone sees everyone's bonus as well. We're not just talking salaries, which some people go, oh, it's going to cause competition. Whereas actually it's healthy competition between them.
Yeah.
You know, they look at it, they know what they're going to get. It gives them security. You know, the guys who've worked elsewhere have probably had annual bonuses, which they don't know what they're going to get. So you get to the end of 12 months, you've worked hard, you think you've done great, and then you get a bonus, and you go, that's not quite what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
These guys, their invoicing is linked to what they get paid. So it's also on an invoice basis. They're not waiting for us to be paid. When they raise an invoice for a client, it's on there, they get the bonus paid for it, but it's quarterly as well. So every 3 months, they've got the bonus.
This is incredible, and I think we should dwell on this for a bit longer because, again, I think that's one of the massive, as a business, it's a huge USP for us.
Yep.
Right? And you're absolutely right. I'm aware of that bonus structure. I think everyone has been, whether or not you've had a tiny little bonus due at Christmas because it's a week's wages, like I've experienced in the past. But for something like this that's performance related, you know, it's like the National Lampoon's Christmas film where, you know, it's all about the bonus. He thinks he's going to buy the pool. There's so many people working, think they can afford the pool, and in the end they end up, you know, being able to buy a paddling pool.
Yeah, how do you manage your life like that then?
This is different, okay? So explain the model, as it's called, and again, for anyone, you know, who's got the opportunity to work as a fee earner in this business, there's that, and then we've got the subsidiary one, which for people like
two
us,
different models.
You know, so go through those.
So from a fee earner point of view, whatever they invoice goes on the sheet, gets recorded at the point.
I think you need to tell the camera this. The people listening to this here, to really believe this. I think this is a really important thing.
So when the fee earners raise an invoice, send it out to a client, that's the point it gets logged. So a lot of places previously, they wait until the company's been paid because that gives them security it's going to come through. It doesn't work on that basis. You raise an invoice, it's on the system. From that point of view, the only deductions that come off it are the corporation tax, your salary, the national insurance on that, and the pension. And if you imagine that then gives a figure each month, from that figure, they get paid 40% of it. So
say that number again.
40% every quarter of what they've invoiced, less those costs. No questions asked. There's no waiting to be paid for anything.
Yeah.
There's no queries about it. And, you know, from looking at the figures, the guys are doing very well out of it. And there is no cap on it either. They get paid whatever the maximum is. We've had some ridiculous figures.
And how many years have we been doing this as part of the business?
Since day one.
So for very nearly 10 years. Okay, this isn't a startup setup.
Correct.
You know, it feels a bit like a startup, like I say, the energy of the business.
Yep.
But this is a very peculiar way to run a business and for us to continue to be successful.
There's now over 50 fee earners. So there's 50 individuals using that same model, and it's still working.
If we think back, if you know these, so let's say a year ago, 2 years ago, what was the number of fee earners then to show our kind of
low 30s.
Low 30s. So you're looking at 60-70%, you know, increase of fee earners coming in. So surveyors, different practices, right? So we're not just building surveyors.
Multidisciplinary, isn't it?
Yeah, multidisciplinary. Thank you. So again, that's amazing. I sat down with a friend at dinner, and she works in the rewards business.
Yep.
You know, that's and you know the incentives, and whether it's, you know, the car schemes and all this kind of stuff. And I told her what we do.
Yep.
And she was like, "That's bollocks. Can't do it. It's impossible." And it still sounds a little bit crazy, right? But evidence.
It sounded crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know, when I was external and you're looking at it, you're going, I'm not sure that's going to work. You know, but it is almost. It's the proof is in the 10 years, isn't it? Of going, we've gone from a small group of individuals doing this, we're going, you know, you've got 2 or 3 people using it, and you go, actually, we can manage it, you know, it's fine, we can get it to work. To 50 people using it, and it still works.
Yeah.
And also, as far as I'm aware, there's no one who's ever left this business who's gone, that model hasn't worked, and that's the reason I'm going.
I'm not surprised.
And
I wish I was on that model myself. It sounds amazing, especially when. So if we think back to, I think maybe 2-3 months ago, under instruction from yourself and from Stephen Barnes, we we published our top 10.
Yep.
You know, because we are transparent internally, but transparent externally as well. So it can, you know, go back into our LinkedIn feed. It's there
Yep.
with our top 10. Now,
Yep.
I can remember the stats of the top line, but maybe you've got a bit more depth into, you know, what kind of expectations those guys are achieving, and you know why they're doing so well.
We've got a whole group of them, you know, so you've got when everyone starts, you know, go back to basics, when someone starts, you know, they worry that they're not going to have the billing. So we also offer a guaranteed 12 months. So the first 4 months are guaranteed at £5,000 a quarter.
Okay.
So they've got £20,000 of bonus, whether you don't bill anything.
Yeah.
Because understand, you've got to get your feet under the table, learn how we work and start, and then
That's every quarter.
Every quarter £5,000,
Nice.
and it stops the pressure on people from going day one. I've got to find new clients. I've got to find business.
Yeah.
You know, find the way we work, get used to it, feet under the table, then you're up and running. And generally, we do find within quarter 3 to 4, everyone's out of that anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they're running on their own 2 feet and they're actually going above and beyond the £5,000.
Yeah.
Which is great and works.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at it, the vast majority, there's a group in the middle who receive about £100,000 a year, salary and bonus.
Salary and bonus.
We've also got exceptional ones where individuals have had bonuses of £60,000 a quarter.
A quarter.
Yeah. Which might sound ridiculous, but they did the invoicing, they billed the clients.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's no cap on it, so that's what they get.
Yeah.
It's paid, no questions asked.
And you know, we're a nationwide company, so that's not. I don't think they're in London actually. I'm trying to think of the guys there. You know, I know the top winners up in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Spoken to some of the younger guys, like guys in their 30s, way younger than I am, who are raking in so much more than I am. Definitely made the wrong career.
Should have been a
choices.
surveyor.
I've advised my children, definitely my older one, building surveyor. It's kind of AI proof, and
next generation.
We can get the next generation coming through. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So no, I think that's incredible. The whole way that the model works, and you know, obviously, if anyone wants to find out more, you know, our website's there.
Absolutely.
I think you'd be a great point of contact, but anyone in the business can honestly turn around and say how it works for them.
I think one of the things that works is when we have someone who's about to start, we go through that with them.
Yeah.
How the model's going to work, because they're always a bit unsure, you know, because it's a methodology that someone's introduced that you're not used to.
Yeah.
So you almost need someone to sit there, walk through it and go, if you invoice this much, this is how much you'll get. We do that with the vast majority of people who are about to start. Just go through it, walk through it, make sure they're happy with it. They're obviously a bit unfamiliar with, everyone sees each other's salary, but, you know, from a surveyor point of view, you know, they don't need to worry about his salary plus bonus.
Okay.
It's more of a support thing.
That makes a lot of sense. I suppose one thing that people might ask a question of our transparency is, let's say that whip leaves the business. It ends up in someone's hands. You know, has that happened before? Are we sensitive to it, or are we just confident that it's fine?
It's sent that we have to. There's some bits we have to take out because you're not allowed to distribute
So
information
I didn't get some of those bits.
From a client point of view. Some you know aren't allowed to go outside the business, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the whole model is there and is sent to people. And if it goes to someone, you know, so be it. What's in there?
Yeah.
You know, what's in there that people can't know. There's always this perception, I think, about financial things like accounts of going, oh, we're going to keep it in house.
Yeah.
It's completely different there. There's transparency of going, actually, we'll give more than people are happy with. You know, so there's the bare minimum you have to give.
Yeah.
The emphasis here is we'll give more than people would ever be uncomfortable with. We'll go a step beyond and go, here's all the information. Why don't we tell people?
It's almost un-British, isn't it, really?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. I never speak to anyone about what I'm earning. It's just that, I think it's that British culture where you just don't speak to anyone. Like, my wife knows what I earn. My best mate doesn't.
The only thing's strange though, isn't it? Because once every, you know, speak to you, if you answer the question, you know, does anyone care here about what people earn?
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any chatter between people going, oh, I bet they're earning more than I am? You know, I'm working harder than they are. Well, you've only got to look on the sheet. It tells you literally what everyone's getting paid, which on day one for a lot of people is really, really uncomfortable. But once you get used to it, it takes away that concern of people, that worry that you're not getting paid what you should be getting paid. Everyone knows what bandings they're in. We've got a very simple, flat structure, and it works very well.
That's fantastic, yeah. So, okay, so let's put that to one side. Let's see what else there is that is on your day-to-day agenda, or maybe potentially what we're looking to do in the future.
Well, you mentioned the support bonus as well, didn't you?
I did. Apologies. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the really important one. This one.
The key thing with that is, you know, that is very different to what else there is in the market. The support team, which is finance, marketing, admin, anyone who's not a fee earner, is also on a bonus scheme.
Yeah.
So again, same quarters, paid quarterly, but it's off turnover.
Okay.
Which is what I know I've spoken to people externally before outside the business going, it's off profit though, isn't it? It's like, no, it's off turnover, it's off income. Like, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, you can do it because we're doing it.
Can do it.
You know, and again, that's been there since day one. So everyone's just got, there's a percentage pot of the total turnover split between all the individuals in the support team. There's no hierarchy in it, so it doesn't matter whether you're marketing director or whether you've just started on day one. In my team, say, everyone gets paid the same split.
Yeah.
Which is
incredible.
Very different to what's going on elsewhere.
And again, that's paid quarterly. You know, it just naturally comes your way, which is a lovely way of receiving
paid quarterly. You know, and with the growth, the figures, because we tend to have additional individuals coming in, it tends to stay pretty static, so we don't get too much volatility in it. So everyone knows where they're up to. And broadly, that figure over a year has been £10,000 to £12,000 a year.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Which, for some of the guys, you know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what wage you're on within the business, to have that, knowing that you're getting that equal, kind of thanks, I suppose, in want of a better way.
There's also something nice, I think, about a bonus structure that's paid quarterly, because it's that little bit of extra cash for people to go, you know, that pays for your holiday. You know, you want to get something nice. One of them's at Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we go, right, well, you've got a bit of extra money for Christmas. It's nice to have that bit dripping through, because that feels like, it's a bit like the extra for putting the effort in. You know, you could be getting paid that whole in salary, and then you'd be like, right, fine, that's just what I get each month.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, mentality-wise, I think from my point of view, it's nice to have that little bit every quarter.
Yeah.
You know, we have a great billing quarter, everyone gets a little bit more. Brilliant.
And I think as well, it would, not that it necessarily affects Black Cat, but I know where in places where I've worked before, if you are working towards a bonus, there's always a drop-off of staff post-bonus.
Yep.
Because people have worked to that point. I mean, even going back as far as doing my paper round when I was a 15-year-old kid, you got the Christmas bonus, everyone leaves on Boxing Day.
Yep.
And it would be exactly the same thing with annual bonuses, I'm sure, in the majority of businesses. So, no, another great way to incentivise and maintain the staff retention.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, look at the admin team's point of view, they will be busy towards a month end when they're doing all the reports, getting them done, but they feel like they're part of the process. You know, they're getting rewarded for they might, you know, to stay late one night because something needs doing, but you're part of it, you're getting rewarded for it.
Yeah.
It's not just all the guys on the front line who are getting all the bonuses.
Amazing.
Everyone in the whole business is on the same plan.
Oh, it's incredible.
Which is
incredible.
great.
Very happy to be part of that as well.
Good.
So keep up your good work. So then, you know, in terms of what else we've got coming up and ambitions for the business that's coming through from your department. How are we coping with the scale?
It's going great, absolutely great. You know, in terms of increase, in terms of numbers, from a year ago there were sort of mid-40s, I think, across the whole business.
Yep.
Employed. We've now got 75.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, I think this month we've gone across the 100th employee of Black Cat.
I heard that.
So we're at 102, of which 75 we've still got today. You know, that's got to be a great sign, hasn't it? You know, 75% of the people who've ever worked here are still here from 10 years ago.
And I bet some of them are retired as well.
There will have been some who've retired, yeah. You know, and that's brilliant. That's a great sign.
Yeah.
And you look at it, there's not a huge churn. When you get scale, people think you get pressure, people are going to leave, they're not going to like it. To have that high level of client retention is ridiculous.
Yeah,
which is great. You know, in terms of growth, you know, we look at it, we've got 6 offices at the moment.
Yep.
You know, we had 4 offices a year ago. We're opening more offices. There'll be more opportunities. There'll be more need for individuals in everyone's team, because as you grow, what you don't want to do is put too much pressure on the individuals who are already there.
Yeah.
You know, we need to supplement them. People coming in with additional skills, things we've never even thought of. You know, whether it's financial analysts, anything like that. We wouldn't have needed that 2 years ago.
No, absolutely.
But as we change, we need new people. That's great.
That's incredible again. Okay, no, that's fantastic. So, and personally then, so what are your ambitions within Black Cat? Have you got any particular plans upcoming for you?
I have my role already, don't I?
That's basically, yeah.
No, which is great, and I absolutely love it. You know, I suppose, you know, you look at it from when it's your job, an internal point of view at home.
Yeah.
And you go, actually, you know, when you get told at home, you're a lot happier than you used to be. And maybe you didn't realise that yourself before, going, actually, maybe I was getting a bit miserable. Yeah. You know, and you're just doing the same thing every time. You know, now you come back, people speak to me. I was speaking to a couple actually who came round last week. They were like, you absolutely love your job, don't you?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not just saying that, I was like, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I literally turn up every day, something different going on. You know, with the growth, there's always something going on. Yeah. You know, we've gone, I think when I started, the turnover was something like 5.5 million 2.5 years ago. This year it's probably 11.5 million. You know, it's a completely different beast to what it was when I started. Where it'll be in 2-5 years, who knows? But I'm glad to be part of it.
Oh, definitely. No, I think as we're adding to the team, like you say, you know, and expanding in offices and you know, geographic areas that we're looking to support and, you know,
different
expand
service
business
lines
in.
as well. That's what's interesting as well. You've got people coming in doing completely different things to what we've ever done before. So it's not just surveying.
Yeah.
Like we said before,
Yeah.
it is completely becoming this multidisciplinary practice.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, Rob, it is such a great time to be at this business. I mean, this sounds like a bit of a loving, but hopefully, you know, for it. But hopefully, you know, people can read between that and actually see our genuine kind of excitement to be here, and the reasons why, which I think you've articulated brilliantly.
I think you know, there's some of the non-tangible stuff as well. You know, you look at it from the point of view, we've got people here, from a fee earner point of view, who've got completely volatile earnings. You know, they earn salary, and then a quarterly bonus. You know, if that bonus is going to be £60,000, you know, for my tax head on or my accountant head on, you know, you need some help with it.
Yes.
So that's why the business is introduced. We've got an external financial planning company that the company have paid for, who look after all the guys for free and go, look, if you want any tax planning, we'll sort it out for you. Because, you know, not everyone's an accountant. You know,
I'm definitely not.
Make sure from their point of view,
Yeah.
they end up with most in their pocket that they can possibly get.
Yeah.
You know, be it, we've got some guys edging towards retirement. You know, they don't want a big bonus and getting hit by ridiculous tax rates.
Yep.
Actually, they want to put it into the pension, try and grow it till they retire and make the most out of it. So we're trying to give flexibility with that. You know, they can swap their bonus for a pension.
Yeah.
You know, which is, if they want to do it, that's fine. You know, in a lot of places, if you change your pension once, you know, like you're stuck with that for a year now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just tell us each month, we'll change it for you. It's all about trying to be as helpful as we can to the surveyors and the support guys as well.
Yes,
and make
I've
sure
experienced
everyone
that,
gets the most out of it.
I've experienced the advice and taken some of those decisions based on your recommendations. So that's really good.
It wasn't advice, by the way, just in case.
Okay,
just so you don't sue me.
Yeah,
never pension advice.
That's fine. But no, I suppose okay, fair. But I suppose in terms of what else are we doing? I mean, I'm aware of other schemes and incentives that we have for the team. What else have we got?
A lot of people are jumping onto the car scheme at the moment. There's an electric car scheme, which is great. It's working really well for everyone.
Yeah.
In terms of that, it's that the financial planning, the pensions. You know, the pension goes up to 15%.
Yeah.
Which,
well, at what point is that? That's after.
We have it on age brackets or how long they've been with the business.
Okay.
So it goes up from 5, 10 to 15%. So we've got a whole group of people on 15%.
Yeah.
We also put the, it's getting a bit technical this, with a salary sacrifice scheme.
Yeah.
The business saves the national insurance on it, so we don't have to pay it. So that gets lumped into the pension as well. So every opportunity we've got is trying to help people out. That's one thing I've noticed since day one. And from before I worked here, it's about the team. We've not got a group of people running it, either externally or internally, who are there going, we're going to take everything and just leave a little bit for everyone else.
Yeah.
It's, you do your job, you'll get rewarded for it. You know, completely flexible working, we've got no holiday allowance. You take off all the days you want to take off, which again seems ridiculous. It won't work.
I know that happens at like some of the big tech firms, right?
Yes.
You know, I've got friends that work in those places, and they've explained it, but they're normally owned by Americans, and Americans get like 2 weeks holiday a year anyway. So, we can take off 3 weeks. I think obviously the Brits, we're kind of expecting that 20. Up in places where you get 20 plus bank holidays, and you think, this is rubbish.
Yeah.
How
especially when you've got kids as well, it's difficult, isn't it? You know, you've got school holidays, you've got doctor's appointments. You know, people worry about going, I've got to take a day off now.
Yeah.
You know, work from home helps a little bit with it because you've got that flexibility. But to know you've got unlimited holidays, and that's not just the surveyors, that's the support guys as well, is unbelievable, and it works ridiculously well. You know, if you look at my team, the only plan we have across the support side is you've got to make sure you don't sort of leave someone else with a problem. You know, if you're halfway through a project, then go, actually, I'm just going to take 2 weeks and sit on the beach. Then, you know, you sort of abdicate in your work a little bit and leave for someone else.
Of course,
That is the only restriction.
Yeah.
You know, and they use it really well. People take the holidays, which is great. You know,
that was going to be my question. Do we have like an understanding of the average that people take, or you know, is it?
The average isn't that different to. I would, without having the exact information, I'd guess people take about 30 days plus bank holidays, but they've got more.
Yeah.
One of the guys on my team, Dave, I'd speak to last year and go, Dave, you need to take more holidays. He joined for 6 months and took like 3 days off. It's like, Dave, you know, you need to actually to be able to work at the optimum and be able to do your job, you have to take a break. You know, people have got families, take time off. And actually you come back refreshed, you get more done, don't you?
Of course
it works
you do,
well.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I've got the same problem you've got with kids. You know, we said school holidays and everyone frets about it. Who's got a holiday allowance going, I'm going to have to put them in a club. What we're going to do about it. Whereas actually, you know, take the time, spend it with your family, you know, and that's the sort of ethos, isn't it? You know, work's a place, you know, you do your work, you've not got to be there all the time. You know, do your job, you know, and people do it. They use the flexibility. You know, sometimes you work at weekends, sometimes you work in the evening, but it's voluntarily. No one's putting pressure on to go, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
But then you feel, but then I'll get the time off because I can take the holidays when I want.
And on the flexibility point, you just mentioned it briefly about, you know, working from home.
Yeah.
You know, do we have a policy as such, or I suppose it's how do we define our working
as
from
few
home
policies as we can possibly have?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's they always say, don't they, it's work for grown-ups. You know, you've got to
Yeah.
treat people like they're grown up.
Yeah.
You know, people, if we've got a catch up, it's quite often on Teams because you don't need to come into the office.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a London office, haven't we? People don't want to be travelling in every day to the office just to be seen.
Exactly.
But then the other side is it's nice to go and see people in the office. You know, I prefer being in the office.
Yeah.
So I tend to do Monday to Thursday in the office and Friday at home because I drop my kids at school.
Yeah.
Which is great because that gives me a bit of time with them and a bit of routine.
Of course it does.
You know, and that works. Then you can work from home. So it works really well.
Yeah, and I think
There's no rules.
We've, you know, having experience at various places of work where, you know, since work from home or hybrid working became more of a thing, you know, pre-COVID, it was very rare in my industry anyway, you know. And then
There's the perception that people aren't doing anything, isn't there?
Yeah.
There was that thing that sat at home not doing anything. You know, you had
Yeah.
people tracking mouse movements and things, didn't you? Going,
I mean, I know people who've got those little mouse jigglers
Yeah,
as
well,
well,
yeah,
but you know,
it's a
they've not
great
been caught
invention.
yet. But yeah, but I think that's the key part. Again, everyone in Black Cat, we're all treated as grown-ups, which is, you know, seems silly to actually have to highlight that.
Yeah.
But yeah, since that, you know, I've worked at hybrid places where you've got one day from home, you know, things like that, but it's still regulated. Whereas I think, again, it's that level of trust. And I appreciate that fee earners in our industry do a lot of site work. You know,
because it's
so,
where the job is, isn't
yeah,
it?
so why track everybody in that instance? But as the support team, you know, it's so great to have that flexibility. And then, you know, you do make the effort to come into, you know, to your specific office or to travel. You know, I've still got
Correct.
a couple of offices to visit. I still haven't made it over to Bristol yet, but yeah, looking forward to doing that. So again, another, you know, really nice part that actually we do offer that and deliver it naturally. You know, there's no questions.
It's also, I think, when we've got now 6 offices, it's good for people to get in. You know, you can run the risk of becoming insular, I think, when you get multi-site.
Yeah.
And that's why we do things like the away week when everyone gets together.
Yes.
Because people won't have met each other. You know, if they're surveyors, they might have come across each other in the industry.
Yeah.
But if one's working in Liverpool and one's working in Southampton, they're probably not going to cross paths.
Of course.
And that's why it's a business. It's great. We get everyone together every year, a few days out somewhere,
Yeah.
everyone gets invited, all expenses paid.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sounds like a challenge this year with the growth. Coming back to the growth of the company, I'm
it's
very
a challenge.
glad that's not on my job list to actually organise.
We'll just get Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, that would work. That'd be fine. It's
Might not be
intense.
much going on. There might be a gay one. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be fine. So, yeah. No, again, Rob, like, there's so much going on at the business that is team member focused.
Yeah.
And enables us to be happy in our work, and then, you know, and the standard of our work with the fee earners is obviously incredible, because otherwise they wouldn't be getting the fees, they wouldn't be getting the engagements with the clients. So I think
Well, you need everyone to be happy, don't you? You know,
We
the
do.
support team are literally there to support the surveyors,
That's
you know,
what
so
we're
they can
here
do the
for,
best job.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're happy, the support team are happy, it's all working well. You know, and part of that is the social side as well. People, when they work together, you know, they need to get on with each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's great when everyone is happy together, they're all working together, it means you've got the right people.
absolutely. I think on that note, I'd say thank you for coming in, Rob.
No problem at all.
I'm sure we'll come back and have another conversation on this in a few months' time. So thank you everyone for watching, listening, and we look forward to welcoming you back next time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.